So I've got 3 hours on the Halverson now. This is on loan to us from Reeves Timber. It's gonna have to go back here real soon, and we've just had loads of rainy weather and I haven't had that much time to run it. But today's decent looking outside and things are starting to dry out, though the yard is a little bit muddy here today. But I've got one small pile of small diameter stuff that I want to get out of the way, and in today's video we're gonna try putting some larger stuff through this machine. So let's get to work. The small logs are done now. Just have to move the splitter back just a little bit. That was probably half cord, maybe. Wasn't that much. And we actually already flew through that tank of fuel. I can see there's like this much left in there. My fuel can here at the farm is empty, so I'm gonna have to run out and get some. But let me show you these logs that we're gonna put through it next. And I just put a tape measure on them. They're not as big as I thought, but I think it'll still be a good test for this machine. And I kind of separated out the remaining logs that I had. All the small ones already went through the machine, and then I stacked up the larger ones here. And I've got this one back here, which is I think about 13-14 inches in diameter, and I've got this one right here, which is 11 to 13-ish. So we're going to cut a little length off of each of these logs and haul them over there, see how it does. So let's see, down this end, looks like about 11 inches. I think the other end will be about the same. We got a knot right there. That's oblong, so up to 14 there, 11 there. And the next one, 12 and a half, 13 and a half. So if my widest log is 14 and a half or so, this bar appears to be an 18-inch bar all the way. And of course, when it pivots out, you might lose a couple inches of that. So I think upwards of 16 is the longest that this could really cut. And then where this four-way wedge goes, where it's sitting right now is actually its highest position. So for that size log, there's absolutely going to have to be some resplits in order to get the 3 to 4 inch size pieces I like to get. So that's what we'll be dealing with. Out of fuel. So you can see most of that did just fine. Had to handle the resplits, which is a little bit of a inconvenience with this machine, let's say. If we had a conveyor on the end and we could get all of the good size splits out of the way, and we had a small table here that we could sort the resplits, that would make this machine so much more productive for this bigger stuff. But as it sits right now, I hardly have any wood on the ground right now. But as this pile grows, there is more and more to navigate around, and that makes handling the resplits that much more difficult. But the only feedback on these bigger ones, if it's straight grain, goes right through, no problem. That last piece you could see had a couple knots in it. Not even really big, gnarly knots, but just enough to put this machine to a stop. And the only way to bust through some of that stuff on this machine is to go down to single wedge, which obviously really slows you down. If this was on my Wolf Ridge, I could plow through those size knots no problem with the 4-way wedge and just keep feeding it through. It's a much larger, more powerful machine. So we got some fuel. Now we can finish resplitting this first piece that we cut. And one thing that I don't think I showed you before on this is that when the 4-way wedge goes down, it is completely lowered to the level of the deck where it slides. So there's no need to completely remove the wedge on this machine since it moves out of the way. So we set out today to see how the Halverson HWP-100 could handle some larger wood. I think that's about the limit of what it can do. You could see when that bar was cutting through the wood, it only had about that much more of the tip of the bar exposed. So theoretically it could cut just a little bit bigger, and if it's on a single wedge, I'm sure it could push most of the stuff through as long as it's not an exceptionally knotty piece. But maybe if you get some really twisty grain stuff, some elm or gum or something like that, maybe it'll struggle with some of that. I don't have any of that right now to test it on. All of this was oak. Red and white oak was all of this stuff. So you know, that's what we had to deal with today. But I think if you're cutting wood for a wood stove or a wood boiler or something like that, you want larger chunks. This is a great machine. It's going to do larger chunks, and it's going to do it quickly, and it's going to take all the work off of you, not having to handle your chainsaw and not having to handle the individual rounds and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, as far as like who this is targeted towards, the Halverson website actually says this is for homeowners and farms and light commercial, 1 to 10 cords a year is what it actually says on their website. Which if you're trying to sell firewood, a 10 cord a year firewood sales, I mean, I was there 2 years ago, but my production needs are much greater now. And if all I had was really small diameter stuff, like the stuff I started with and the stuff I did in the last video, this machine would fly through it pretty quickly at a rate of about 3/4 of a cord to a cord an hour. With the small stuff, I think actually a cord an hour is probably a little generous, because what I did this morning with that small stuff that I first started with today was probably around a half cord, maybe slightly over, and that took me about an hour today. Well, don't want this video getting too long. I've got some other things to do around here, so I'm going to put the camera away, get back to work. But thanks for spending a little bit of time. I've got one more video I'm going to publish with this before it goes out the door, and it's kind of my final thoughts, a final review. I'm going to talk a little bit about the controls, a little bit about using the machine as an operator, as well as recapping some of what I view as the pros and cons over my past several hours of use on this machine here in the last week or so. So tune in for that one. And if you guys got any questions or comments, leave those in this video's comments section, and I'll respond to what I can. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.